Right here, I have 10 counter smart hoops I will be looking at. And if you don't know what a counting smart hoop is, supposedly these hoops are able to count the spins each time the ball spins around. On this side right here, these 5 smart hoops are the Swiss Activa brand hoops. Now, if you look at these hoops, they may look practically the same from a distance, but all of these hoops are different models and some of them have some major differences. And then on this side, we have the remaining 5 smart hoops competing against the Swiss Activa brand. So it'll be interesting to see which smart hoops come out on top. Later on in this video, I will let you know which smart hoops I think are the best. To start things out, I'm gonna go ahead and narrow the field here. So let's look at this smart hoop hanging next to me first. First off, this smart hoop right here could potentially be dangerous. I bought a smart hoop that looked a lot like this one from another seller, got the ball spinning really fast, and then all of a sudden one of the pieces broke and then the ball just flung out. And I feel like that is a huge problem. You do not want a smart hoop where the ball is flinging out. Another problem with a smart hoop like this, when I took the counter out of the hoop and I looked at the wheels and the inside of the counter itself, I noticed what appeared to be some very small plastic bits that may have come off the hoop or the counter. The outer part of the wheels appear to be made of plastic, which may be contributing to the plastic shedding that I am finding. Now, there's a lot of wheels out there made of plastic, and I don't recall any hoop shedding as much plastic as this hoop right here. In terms of the spinning action, you know, it was okay. This hoop was on the louder end for me. And the ball was also not at a weight that I would want in a ball. With that said, this hoop doesn't really do it for me, so let's move on to the next hoop. Okay, so the next hoop I wanna look at is this one right here. Now, this hoop has some unique features. The wheels on this hoop appear to be made of metal. Also, the pieces of this hoop and the way that you connect them and take them apart is different compared to the other hoops in this review. Also, the counter of this hoop is mounted to the hoop itself versus being on the part that spins around. Now, I have tried other hoops that have counters that look identical to this one right here, and I can't recall any of them working or lasting very long. So even though I haven't tested this counter for accuracy, just looking at it, I don't really have much hope of it lasting very long in the future based on my past experiences with counters that look like this one. There is a major problem with this hoop right here. When I was testing this hoop during the smoothness test, where I see how long the ball glides around the hoop on its own without me helping to make it spin, the biggest problem I noticed was the ball would sometimes snag and then it would come back and hit me in the body. And some of those hits were kind of forceful, and I feel like that is a huge problem, and that's something I don't want in a hoop. Now, beyond the smoothness test, when I did get the ball to spin around, it did get smoother. It did have an okay spin. However, it was on the louder side for me. Overall, with the safety concerns and the problems this hoop has, I just can't recommend a hoop like this. This hoop is not for me. Now moving on to this blue hoop right here. Now, this blue hoop is very similar to this pink hoop, which I have reviewed this pink hoop and compared it to some other hoops previously. The biggest difference is this hoop has a counter. Now, unfortunately, this blue hoop has a lot of the same problems as the pink hoop. So I'm not gonna go into much detail about this hoop, and there's just better hoops in this video. Now, probably one of the most surprising hoops in this entire video is this one right here. I mean, if you look at this thing, it looks like a hoop that was made in the 80s. What was really surprising about this is just how loud it was, because when I tested it for sound, this was the quietest hoop in this entire review. One of the reasons why this hoop spun so quietly is because if you look at the wheels, they appear to be rubber wheels. And the smart hoops that have rubber wheels tend to be quieter. But here's the thing about this, something that's really disappointing is just the weight of the ball. I think it's under 11 ounces, and it's just not heavy enough. You know, when I spin this thing around, I feel like I'm having to really work to make up for that lack of weight in the ball. And also too, the cord length is adjustable. However, it doesn't go out as far as I would like it to go in a smart hoop. So that's also another problem. Now, one of the qualms I have about this hoop, when it comes to the sound test, is it really fair to compare this lighter weight hoop to the hoops with heavier weights in this video? For me, the lack of weight in the ball and the other problems that this hoop has cancels out the benefit of this hoop being on the quieter side. Now, there was only one other hoop in this entire review to post a decibel reading under 67. That hoop just happens to be one of the heavier weight hoops in this review with a ball weight over 15 ounces. I will get to that hoop later on in this video. Now, the next hoop I want to look at is this hoop right here. This is an interesting specimen. I feel like it spun around fairly smooth. Now, something I like about this hoop, it was on the quieter side. It did pretty well in the noise test. Another neat feature about this hoop, it's fairly easy to open up. And then just look how flexible the body of the hoop is. You know, I'd say that's some decent flexibility right there. Even though there are some pluses with this hoop does have some major flaws. The first one here is the weight. The weight itself is on the lighter end. It weighed in at under 11 ounces. Now, when looking at the weight up close, it does have this black circle right here that looks like a cork. And I tried to pull that cork out because I thought, oh, I wonder if you can put more sand into this ball to make it weigh more. But it looks like that black cork isn't really coming out. Now, here's the thing, and this is something that I recommend to everybody out there who gets a smart hoop, is for something like this, I don't recommend putting more sand in the ball or getting any smart hoop where you have to fill it with your own weights. Because here's the problem with this right here. What if I put too much sand in the ball and then it exceeds the amount of weight that this hoop could hold and then it flies off? So that is a safety concern. And speaking of which, when I observed this same model of hoop being used, the ball did fling off from the hoop. And the wild thing about it is what ended up happening was the cord disconnected from the tip of the counterpiece and flew off the hoop. And then I went ahead and opened up the counter and just noticed the cord doesn't really connect well to the counterpiece. And so that is a safety concern with this hoop right here. And like I said, the ball is already on the lighter side. This is just not a hoop that I can really get behind. It's really unfortunate because there's been a number of hoops so far in this video that do have some nice features, but then they have this catastrophic deal breaker that I just feel like wrecks the whole hoop. Time out. I'll get back to the video in just a moment here. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge it has been over a year since I was diagnosed with cancer. I'm currently on chemotherapy, so it just really means so much to me that you're tuning in to watch these videos. Something that this has taught me is just life is so unpredictable and it can be so short and you just don't even know it. And so I feel like you just have to follow your dreams, what you want in life. And something that I want for this channel and a dream that I have is to reach 100,000 subscribers. And I would love it if you could subscribe to my channel and, like this video, comment on this video, whatever to support this channel. I would absolutely love it. And you would be helping me to fulfill one of my dreams in life. So thank you so much for your support. Now back to the video. Now I want to focus on the Swiss Activa hoops right here. Something that I like about all these hoops is the ball weights. I feel like the weight is on the heavier end when compared to some of the lighter weight hoops in this review. And that's something I really like because I'm finding that the weight of the ball is really important and can impact the spin as the ball goes around. And I like that all these hoops give you the option to adjust the cord length, which is really nice. Now I want to look at these hoops individually and compare them to each other. So the first model right here I want to look at is the Swiss Activa S5. This hoop right here doesn't have any special buckles. You just have to pick a spot on the hoop, press the button in, and then you can pull the hoop apart. When I pull this hoop apart here, this is about as far as I can bend the pieces. So this hoop right here is definitely more on the rigid side. Now, having a more rigid hoop frame isn't necessarily a bad thing. Some of the smoother spinning hoops I've ever tried are more on the rigid side. Now, if you do end up getting a hoop that's more on the rigid side, like this one one right here. I don't recommend bending your hoop super far just to get the hoop on your body. Instead, what I recommend doing is take a few pieces off your hoop first so that it makes a bigger entryway into the hoop, then put your hoop on, then take the pieces you took off, put them back on the hoop, and then you can start your workout. And then when you're done with your workout, do the same thing. Take another few pieces off the hoop, and then it makes it easier to get out of the hoop. The key here is to help preserve the life of your hoop. Don't bend the hoop in ways that it shouldn't be bent. Don't go beyond the max bend of your hoop. Okay, so that was more of a tip for hoops in general. In terms of the spinning action on the S5 here, once you get the ball going around, I'd say that the spin is fairly smooth. Also, this hoop was more complicated to put together. It took longer to build than the other hoops that I've used. Now, once the hoop is fully assembled, something I did notice about this hoop is you really have to make sure that those buttons that lock the pieces together click into place. Because if you don't hear that click and that button isn't fully locked into place, there is a chance that the ball could come off the hoop. Some of these buttons I noticed at times can be a little bit sticky, and what I mean by that is sometimes if I push it down, it doesn't come up right away. So, maybe I kind of have to jiggle the pieces a little bit, then the piece pops out. So just wanted to put that out there about the buttons. Now, something else I noticed about the Swiss Activa S5, when I was wearing this hoop lower on my body and I was spinning the ball around, it did feel more uncomfortable wearing the hoop lower. Also too, later on, I did notice some marks and possible bruises on my body as well. Now, when wearing the hoop higher on my body, I don't recall feeling as much discomfort. Now, here's the thing, just because I felt that wearing the S5 lower on my body was more uncomfortable, it doesn't mean that others may experience the same thing as me. Also too, for anyone who gets any kind of smart hoop, you may want to consider getting some type of waist pad to wear under your hoop. Sometimes just having that can make the experience feel more comfortable, and in some cases, for some people, prevent marks and bruising occurring on the body. Now, something else about the S5, it was a little bit louder for me. It did test on the noisier side. Now, if you're not a fan of the noise in the S5, Swiss Activa did release quieter versions of the S5 in these two hoops right here. This hoop right here is the S5S model. Basically, this hoop has the exact same frame as the S5 here, and the counters are very similar. The main difference in the counter is this one appears to have rubber wheels and this one appears to have plastic wheels. Having the rubber wheels on the counter helps to reduce the noise when spinning the ball around this hoop. Another version of the S5 is this hoop right here, which is the S5S Plus. So this hoop also has the same hoop frame as the S5. But if you look at the counter here, it is different. The numbers on this counter light up and it's also USB rechargeable. This counter also appears to have rubber around the wheels too. So this hoop does spin quieter than the S5 here. Overall, the S5 series here, I feel like these three hoops are not bad hoops at all, and I feel like they would beat out a lot of the hoops in this review. Now we are moving on to the final two hoops in this review, these two hoops right here. This is the Swiss Activa S4S model, and then this is the Swiss Activa S6 Plus model. Both these hoops have similarities to the Swiss Activa S5, but they also have some differences too. Starting off with this hoop right here, the S4S, this hoop performed well in the sound test. Now, I will say some of the S4S sound tests were all over the place, with the lowest score being a 66.7 decibel average and the highest score being a 70.4 decibel average. This hoop did test as the quietest hoop among the hoops with a ball weight greater than 10.7 ounces in this review. That's a huge deal because in all the hoops I tested in this video, my top hoops all had heavier weights, weighing at least 15 ounces. I'm not a big fan of the hoops that have a much lighter ball weight. So it's nice to come across a hoop that does have a heavier weight and also spins on the quieter side as well. Now for me personally, I like to have a hoop that registers under 80 decibels for noise, partly because when I was doing the sound tests in this review, something I noticed for the hoops that started to go above that 80 decibel mark is when I was talking to the camera and using the hoop at the same time, I felt myself having to elevate my voice more. And I feel like that's a concern because let's say if I use a smart hoop and I do this with a friend or something, I don't want to have to feel like I'm starting to yell just to talk to my friend while I'm using my hoop. So definitely the quiet feature in this hoop is a plus, and the counter appears to have rubber wheels. In terms of the spinning action of the S4S hoop, this hoop got smoother the faster the ball was spinning, with the ball spinning very smoothly at higher speeds. While at the other end, smoothness diminished in this hoop the slower the ball was spinning around. So that is a complaint that I have about this hoop, is this hoop just losing smoothness the slower it spins. But here's the thing, when I did get this hoop spinning at a fast enough pace, this hoop spun very smoothly, and it was probably one of the smoother spinning hoops in this entire review. But in order to achieve that level of smoothness, I did have to crank up the speed when spinning the ball around. Now, where the S4S is similar to the Swiss Activa S5, it also has buttons around the hoop. So you just find a spot on the hoop and you press the button and then you pull it apart. This hoop is also more on the rigid side. This is about as far as I can pull this hoop apart. Now, when it comes to the Swiss Activa S6 Plus here, it too is also like the S5 and the S4S. You just find a button on the hoop and then you pull it apart. This hoop here is also more rigid. As you can see here, this is about as far as I can pull this hoop apart. Now, here's the thing about the S6 Plus. This hoop is the smoothest hoop I have ever used. It beats out all the other hoops in this review. When that ball is spinning around, it just spins like butter. Even though this hoop appears to have plastic wheels, this hoop spins on the quieter side. So that's something else that I like about the S6 Plus too. Now, where both of these hoops differ from the S5 hoops that I showed earlier is definitely if you look at the pieces, you know, the pieces are different from the S5. And also too, I don't feel like both of these hoops were as complicated to put together. And I do like the button action better on the S4S and the S6 Plus when compared to the S5. In terms of comfort, so far, both of these hoops feel okay to wear. Though I do feel like I may benefit from doing some more testing with these hoops to determine just how comfortable these hoops are in different situations. Now, in terms of the counters, here's an up close look at the different Swiss Activa counters. The biggest noticeable difference here is the S6 Plus and the S5S Plus both have counters where the screen lights up and they are USB rechargeable, whereas the other counters here don't have those features. Now, one thing I will note, the first day I opened up the box to the Swiss Activa S6 Plus right here and I tried it out, I did notice that one of the pieces, the locking mechanism on the piece, part of it was broken. Now, in my case, Swiss Activa did send me extra pieces for the S6 Plus, so I wasn't in need of a replacement piece. Now it's time to determine which smart hoops with counters are the best in this review. All of the smart hoops you see here are my top picks with counters. All of these hoops are Swiss Activa hoops, starting with this one right here, the S5S Plus. This is the S5S hoop. This is the S4S, and then this is the S6 Plus. In terms of my standards for picking the top counter smart hoops, I didn't select hoops that had a much lighter ball weight. All the hoops you see here have a weight that's on the heavier side. I also didn't pick hoops that were on the louder side that tested over 80 decibels in the sound test. I also didn't select hoops that appeared to have some safety concerns, along with other factors I may consider that make for a bad smart hoop. Now, in terms of the smart hoop I think is the best among these four hoops right here, then I would give that honor to the Swiss Activa S6 Plus right here. I do feel like this was the best counter smart hoop in this review. Now, if you are interested in getting any Swiss Activa hoop, you can do so by clicking the links in the description of this video. Also, Swiss Activa is giving my audience a special discount. The coupon codes are also in the description. And if you use those coupon codes, it does help to support this channel, and it also helps to fund me financially. And with the current health situation I'm in, I do feel more limited in what I can do for work right now. So if you do end up buying through those links and you use the coupon codes, I just really want to thank you right now. Thank you so much for supporting me and this channel. Like, it really means a lot. Now, a big question, where does the Swiss Activa S2 XXL hoop rank among the top smart hoops? Now, if I did have to rank these 5 hoops in order, starting out with the S5S Plus, the S5S, and then also the S4S hoop right here, I feel like any of these 3 hoops right here could make a case for the 3rd best hoop among these 5. So in terms of ranking the 5th, 4th, and 3rd best hoop, I'm gonna leave that up to the audience. Hop down to the comment section and let me know how you think these hoops should be ranked in order. In terms of the 2nd best hoop, I feel like that honor goes to the Swiss Activa S2 XXL hoop right here. I feel like this hoop performed well overall. I like that this hoop comes with extra pieces. I like the ease of use of this hoop. The number 1 spot in this review for me goes to the Swiss Activa S6 Plus right here. I just really like that this hoop spun so smoothly. So this is my number 1 hoop in this review. The hoop that you do decide to get may be based off of personal preferences. Do you want something that's more quiet? Do you want something that spins smoother? What are you looking for? The key thing to think about here is the best hoop is going to be the hoop that you use the most. If you end up getting a cheap smart hoop where the cord length isn't adjustable, or the ball is on the lighter side, or when you spin the ball around, it constantly is catching and it's not very smooth, or the hoop is just not very comfortable to wear, how can you be successful if you get a smart hoop like that? Even though I've posted so many videos on how to use your smart hoop, I can only teach someone so much if you get a bad hoop. I just don't recommend buying hoops that are substandard, like some of the hoops I reviewed earlier in this video. In some cases, it's the hoop itself that will determine whether you will be successful or not. And just as a reminder, if you are interested in getting my top recommended smart hoops, visit the links and use the coupon codes in the description of this video. Now that I've revealed my top smart hoops in this entire review, I want to get into some of the more nitty-gritty details about some of these hoops right here and look at some of the differences and things that I feel like may be important that you should know. So with that said, let's get into it. Starting off, I want to see how big each one of these hoops gets. I assembled each hoop with all the pieces that it came with. Then I'm going to take a tape measure and measure the width of each hoop just to see how big each hoop is. When measuring the inside diameter of the S4S hoop, it comes to about 14.5 inches or almost 37 centimeters. The diameter measurement for the S6 Plus is very similar to the S4S hoop. It came in at about 14.5 inches. Though I will say the inside bumps protruding from the hoop may take a little bit off that measurement. The inside diameter of the S2 XXL hoop came in at around 17 inches or at around 43 to 44 centimeters. So definitely the S2 XXL hoop is the biggest hoop out of these 3 right here. If you do need extra pieces beyond what you see here in these hoops, Swiss Activa does sell extra pieces. I will put a link in the description of this video to get extra pieces if you need them. Also, the tape measure that I used to measure these hoops right here came inside the box with my Swiss Activa hoop. So I feel like this is a really nice accessory to have, especially if you are using your hoop for weight loss and you want to track your progress. Being able to take your measurements may be a key component to that. Also, I want to know, which smart hoop do you think is the best? What things do you look for in a smart hoop? Please hop down to the comment section and let me know. Now, something that the S4S model has that the other Swiss Activa counter hoops don't have is, if you look at the pieces up close here, you'll notice that the S4S here, in between the pieces, the gap is much smaller compared to the other counter Swiss Activa hoops. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because, let's say if you're wearing a piece of clothing, something that is more on the baggier side, and you're going to be spinning your hoop, the smaller the gap is between each piece, the less likely a piece of clothing is going to get into that gap and possibly come in contact with the counter as it spins around the hoop. So that is a benefit to the S4S here, to have that smaller gap between each piece so that clothing doesn't get inside there to make contact with the counter as it spins around. But here's the thing, the issue with clothing and possibly creeping up through the gaps of the hoop may not even be a problem at all if you wear the right kind of clothing. When it comes to clothing, I don't care what type of smart hoop or weighted hula hoop a person uses. I don't recommend wearing baggy clothes or just looser clothing. Instead, I recommend wearing clothes that are more form-fitting or possibly wearing some type of waist pad underneath your hoop. So something I want to put out there, I did not test any of the counters in this video for accuracy. I also didn't really look at all of their functions. Some counters do more than just counting the spins as the ball goes around. Like some of them may also be a timer. Some of them may also count calories, maybe even more things. Though I am a little suspicious about the ones that count calories, because how can you count calories if you don't, let's say, have someone's heart rate or something like that. But anyways, I just want to put that out there about my lack of testing with the counters. But if I did have to pick a counter based off of just looking at it, then I would definitely choose the Swiss Activa counter with the bigger light up numbers and USB rechargeability. Now, if you did miss parts of this review, I did add timestamps if you need to go back and re-watch some things. And if you want to buy any of the Swiss Activa hoops, visit the links in the description of this video, and you'll also see the coupon codes there to get a discount off your hoop. And if you found this video to be helpful and you like that I got so detailed and provided so much information, and you think this information will be helpful to other people, please subscribe to my channel. The more subscribes I get, it tells me that I'm doing something right and that I should continue making videos in the future. Just so you know, this video was not sponsored, but the majority of the footage in this video did come from a longer smart weighted hula hoop comparison review, which was sponsored by Swiss Activa and was released on my Hoopsmiles channel. If you want to watch that video, you can click right here. If you want to watch some more smart weighted hula hoop videos on this channel, you can click right here. Thank you everyone for watching. Until next time, enjoy.